Hi there, welcome to episode 64 of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is the newest wave of Fantastic Four Marvel Legends. And this was the Super Skrull Build-A-Figure wave. So this wave just came out very recently. It started hitting some stores around the last week of December. I'm here in Canada. We just started getting them a week, 2 weeks ago. It hit the exact same time as the new Spider-Man Marvel Legends wave, and I just posted a video review of that wave as well. So if you're interested in hearing about the new Spider-Man figures, please go back and check out episode 63. And check out any of my other old videos while you're back there. So I won't waste any more time with the introduction. Let's take a look at these new Fantastic Four figures. Here's the Thing in package, from the back, and from the side. So here is the Thing outside of the package. And this Thing figure is awesome. The Thing is my favorite member of the Fantastic Four. I imagine he's probably most people's favorite member of the Fantastic Four. Just this big rock monster. How can you go wrong? And I've waited a long time for a good Thing figure. There've been good ones in the past, but the current crop of Marvel Legend figures from Hasbro has been so good, and none of the other figures I had before were compatible with this current line. So I really wanted a current Marvel Legends Thing, and it seemed like we were waiting a long time. But here we have one, and it's awesome. The thing is, this wave of figures, which is available at wide release, you should be able to find them at Walmarts and wherever else. I wasn't super excited about it because we had a set of Fantastic Four figures that were exclusive to Walgreens just in 2018. And that might have even rolled into 2019. But I know the Thing figure from Walgreens, it made my best of 2018 list. And here's that figure right here. Now, these ones are pretty similar. They share, I would say, probably most of the same parts. Like their feet, their legs, you can see their knees. I'd say everything, the torso here, it's probably all the same. The hands, you see, they appear different. This Thing only came with fisted hands, whereas this Thing came with a choice of open hands and fisted hands. So I imagine these fists are the same as the ones that originally came with him. I've opted to display this guy with the open hands. And the biggest difference is the heads. Now, they might look pretty similar. I was totally fine with this head. I like it quite a bit. But when this figure came out, there were some people that were a little upset that his brow wasn't a little bit more pronounced. The classic Thing had a really thick brow, and they've kind of fixed that with this one here. The brow, you can see, looks like a separate piece, and also the underbite is a little more significant on this one here. So there you go. For those people out there that wanted a Thing head that was a little more, its features a little more pronounced, we get that with this figure here. And the other major difference, of course, is the paint job. So this one here, you see they've got kind of a wash over it, so you can see all the different stones that make him up. You can see all the cracks in him. They've opted not to do that with this figure. So like in these pieces here, it's just one big solid piece of orange plastic. Doesn't look like it has any paint applications at all. Where he does have some paint is, you can see there's a lighter orange painted out through here on his chest, some bits on his arms, and it almost looks like it's a painted highlight. Like if he was standing facing the sun or something, this would be the light source on him. And I don't know if it's super successful. I would have been fine with them not doing the wash on this figure to help differentiate it from this one. So this one would have all that dark lines all through it, and this one wouldn't. But I don't really like the way this wash looks, especially on the face there. The change in color is almost a little too stark, and it looks like he just kind of has paint splashed on his face. And I don't think it's super successmoved. And then lastly, the other difference here is I think the shorts are the same, but they have added this rubber belt, which can be moved around a little bit here. When I opened them up, the belt was kind of twisted to the side. I had to kind of move it around a little bit so it would straighten out. So I was glad to see that I could straighten it out, because I didn't like how it looked crooked in the packaging. But anyway, if you don't have this Thing figure, this is still an excellent Thing figure. If I didn't have this guy would probably be a shoe-in for my best of list for 2020. I'm not sure he would make my list now just because I kind of feel it's a re-release of a figure I basically already had. But it's still a really great figure. I'm really happy with it. Now, before I move on to the next figure, I just thought it might be fun to show you some of the other Thing figures I have in my collection. I had to have my kind of buckets of older figures out because I was digging out some other figures because I wanted to do some comparison shots. And I stumbled across a bunch of old things, so I thought I'd pull them out and show you. So here's the first Thing that I ever had in my collection. This one here is only about 3 inches tall. It's not articulated, but yeah, this is all we really had to choose from back in the, I guess it would have been the early 90s or so, before Toy Biz started making figures on the regular. This is what we had to live with. But I was actually pretty pleased with this at the time, and I still think this is a nice little Thing figure. When Toy Biz did start making figures based on the cartoons of the 90s, this is the Thing that I had. And this too is also still a pretty nice Thing figure. I like the sculpting on it. It probably could have benefited from a bit of a wash so you could see some of the sculpted detail in there. He had a punching feature, so if he spun around he'd swing his arms. But still, I like that figure. This is one in the Marvel Legends scale, but this is based on the live action movie when he was played by, was it Michael Chiklis? So I actually think it's an okay version of that version of the Thing, but I was not really pleased with the look of the Thing in that movie. So yeah, I don't love this figure, but he's not too bad. And until they redo a good Fantastic Four movie, if I wanted to have a display with all my Marvel Cinematic Universe figures, I think this guy would actually still fit in there okay. It's not too bad a figure. And the last one I want to show you is from the 3 3/4 inch Marvel Universe line, which is what I collected before I started getting into Marvel Universe, or into Marvel Legends. And I thought these were great figures, and this is still an excellent Thing figure. Lots of nice detail in the face. I like the way they detailed out the rocks. And yeah, not a bad figure. So it seems kind of hard to make a bad Thing figure. And yeah, I'm just happy to have so many of them because they're awesome. Here's Mr. Fantastic in the package, from the back, and from the side. So here is Mr. Fantastic outside of the packaging. And again, this is another great figure. I think the sculpting is great. I love the like kind of the body size. It's appropriate for Reed. Sometimes you get ones that are too skinny or too buff, but I think this scale is just right for Reed Richards. And yeah, articulation, sculpting, paint, everything is great. So there you go. Now, as with the Thing, like I just mentioned, fans have been waiting for some Marvel Legends of the Fantastic Four for a while, because they are, you know, some of the most important characters in the Marvel Universe, and it seemed kind of crazy that we had characters like, I don't know, Spider-Ham or something before we even had the Fantastic Four. Well, Walgreens gave us a whole set of Fantastic Four that they sold one at a time, spaced out by a couple of months. And so I showed you the Thing. Here is the Mr. Fantastic from Walgreens. So I'm pretty sure it uses a lot of the same parts for the body here. The boots are different. You see, I've got him on little bases here, but he's got kind of just standard flat boots. Whereas this guy here has got kind of a more, I know he's got some grips on his toes. This kind of matches the more contemporary look of the Fantastic Four. And I didn't comment on that during the Thing video, but I don't currently read the Fantastic Four book. I am not familiar with these black outfits that they're currently wearing. I don't think they look bad. It's a little strange to me because I've always associated the Fantastic Four with the blue costumes. Like you see here. Even this, there's been variations on the blue in the past, because sometimes it's got blue and black, sometimes it's blue and white. I wasn't too particular about that, but this is the look that I associate with the Fantastic Four. Not so much this. It wasn't as noticeable on the Thing because we're only talking about a little pair of shorts, but it's definitely noticeable on Mr. Fantastic. However, for this figure, I'm glad they went with this new outfit, because I wouldn't have wanted them to just give me another blue Mr. Fantastic, because I think this one's already, really great as a classic Mr. Fantastic. Now, as far as the major difference that you're probably noticing is the head sculpt. So this one here has a bearded face, which again matches the more contemporary look for Reed Richards, where this one here is clean shaven. Now, when this figure came out, though, he actually had an alternate bearded head, because that he had, I think, just recently started walking around with a full beard in the comic books. So I'm glad they gave us that with this figure for people that wanted a contemporary look. But I would have been disappointed if that was the only look they gave us, because Reed's been around since the 60s and he's always been clean shaven, so it's nice that we had that option. I'm not 100% sure if this head is the exact same as the bearded head we got with this figure. I didn't want to bother digging it out for this review, but it wouldn't surprise me if it is the same head. Now, the other major difference as far as accessories go is this Reed, to demonstrate his elastic powers, the ability to reshape his body into all kinds of different things. He came with extra arms that were big, long arms. One of them, I believe, came with a big mallet, so his arms stretched out, and he had a big hammer at the end. And I thought that was a pretty good way of showing Reed's abilities. This figure, all it came with was 2 alternate hands with these weird stretchy fingers. So you see, I've decided to display him with one of each, but I do have his alternate hands here. So there's another fisted hand as well as another stretchy finger hand. And while that does show that he can stretch, it's kind of weird that that's the only accessory they decided to give him. I would have been fine with maybe one of these hands and then maybe one arm with the mallet or something, or a different shape altogether. But if they were looking to cut costs, they already have the mallet hand available. They could have just reused that again. Because if this was my only Reed figure, it doesn't really show his ability to stretch his body with just these weird, creepy fingers. It just seems like his power is to have weird, creepy fingers. So I wish they had done a little bit more there. But considering this is like my secondary Reed figure, it's not as big of a deal. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about Reed. But before we move on to the next figure, let's bring out a couple other Reeds just for fun. So, the only ones I grabbed, I have more than this, but these are the ones that I found when I was digging around. So, first up, to match the Thing I had from the first live-action Fantastic Four movie, I also have the Reed Richards. So this is based on the actor likeness from those first Fantastic Four movies. And again, it's not a bad figure. That joint in the neck is kind of ugly looking, but yeah, it's not bad. And he had some fun accessories too, I think, that showed his abilities, such as like a face that was squished like a pancake and whatnot. It was a fun figure. Now, even better, another movie-based figure. This one here, if I remember correctly, just came as an accessory with another one of the figures. But this here is Reed in his stretchy form. So he's got wires in him, and you can shape his body into all kinds of weird shapes. And this is incredible as far as a Mr. Fantastic accessory. Like, I wouldn't want this to necessarily be my only Mr. Fantastic figure, although it wouldn't be that bad if it was. But to have this as just an alternative to swap out with an actual figure would be great. If I was a kid and I was playing with Mr. Fantastic, this is what I'd want in my collection. So yeah, this thing was great. And the only other one that I have out to show you is the Mr. Fantastic from the 3 3/4 Marvel Universe line. Nothing really special about this one, but it's not bad. Here's the Invisible Woman in package, from the back and from the side. And here is Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, outside of the packaging. So, another really nice figure. I think the proportions and everything look good. I don't have any issues with the articulation, the sculpting, the paint. So yeah, if you're a Fantastic Four fan, especially of the contemporary look in the black and the blue, I would strongly recommend you pick up this Sue. So I'll just bring out the other one here for some comparison. So here's the Walgreens Sue from a little more than a year ago. So you can see the body is by and large the same. Like with Reed, they've changed her boots, so she's got the ones with the tread on them there. It's a little more stylized than just the standard flat-footed boot. And they've gone with a new head sculpt here, which is nice. They didn't really need to. But I didn't love this head sculpt. I think it's fine. I think this one's better. I still don't know if they've captured Sue quite right yet. I don't know what I would imagine for a Sue Storm standard head, but when I did read Fantastic Four for a significant portion of time in the 80s, I don't think either of these heads quite look like how I want my Sue to look, but they're not bad by any means, and I do think this one is an improvement over the last one. So that's good. Now, as far as accessories go, you see here she's got this weird invisible shield, which Sue Storm has always had the ability to kind of make a force field and kind of make invisible projectiles. So this here kind of works. You just tuck her hand inside of the sculpting on this hunk of translucent plastic. So it makes for a nice effect. I can't remember if this Sue did come with any invisible effects, but she did have the lower part of this arm. Whoops. This arm is cast in translucent plastic and just kind of painted with a little bit of black and blue to kind of show that she's like in the process of going invisible. I thought that was pretty cool. They didn't do that with this figure here, which I'm fine with. But yeah, if they ever decide to make a variant or something, make this one completely invisible would be kind of cool. So yeah, I don't have much more to say about this Sue Storm. It's a nice figure. I don't feel you can really buy one member of the Fantastic Four without the others, and I really wouldn't want a mismatched team either. So if I had the Reed in black, I wouldn't want the Sue in blue. You kind of have to go with a full matching team. So yeah, if you like any of these new contemporary Fantastic Four figures, you got to grab them all. Now, the only Sue that I could find to show as a comparison is the 3 3/4 Marvel Universe one. Again, I know I do have a couple of other versions, such as the Jessica Alba version, which was still a pretty nice figure. This Sue Storm here, it's not my favorite. The outfit matches the Reed figure, but I don't really like this outfit with the short sleeves. And again, I still don't think this head sculpt really captures Sue Storm. I don't know what Sue Storm needs to look like, but none of these three quite do it for me. But yeah, this Marvel Legend figure is a good one, so track it down. Now here's the Human Torch in package from the back and from the side. Now here is Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, outside of the packaging. So now we're really getting to the good figures in this set. Not that the previous three weren't good, but they were all just kind of slight variations of figures I already had. This figure here is much more essential to your Marvel Legends collection, because Johnny Storm is one of those figures where it's really tough to know, if you're only going to get one figure of him, what you want that figure to look like. Like, if you want a Spider-Man figure, obviously you want Spider-Man. You don't want Peter Parker. You want Batman. You don't want Bruce Wayne. But when it comes to the Human Torch, he's so likable as Johnny Storm, and he looks like this so often in the comic books. It gives him the costume to match his teammates. I love Johnny Storm, but when he uses his power, he ignites and turns into a flame-covered Human Torch. And that's what we got from Walgreens when they gave us a Johnny Storm figure a year or so ago. And you can see these ones are drastically different. This isn't just a simple repaint or changing the color of his outfit. So we've got him here all flamed up, and here he is flamed down. And I think both of them are essential to your collection, because if you were playing with these figures, Johnny Storm does not just walk around all lit up like this. He only does that when he's going into battle. So yeah, it's really nice to finally have a Johnny Storm figure where he can just be chilling out. This flamed up Human Torch is a nice figure. I still have kind of mixed feelings about that too, because he was drawn a certain way for so long when he was flamed up, and I'm actually going to bring out my prior Human Torch figures a little earlier just so I can show you what I'm talking about. But he's always drawn with all these kind of weird lines all over him, and all the previous versions of the Human Torch tried to mimic how he was drawn in the comic book. So you'll see here is the Toy Biz one from the 90s. He had some openings there. There used to be like a string on the back he would pull, and you'd see like a light up effect in his chest. But just you see how he's got those lines all down him. It's almost like he was being grilled or something. And then the little flame effects throughout. This isn't maybe super successful, but I get what they're going for. I kind of like it. Here is just this figure here I think actually just came from a McDonald's or something. But it's actually not too bad. It's cast in translucent plastic. But again, you see he's got those lines that run the length of him with some flame effects on him as well. And then here is the 3 3/4 inch Marvel Universe version. So he doesn't have the lines throughout, but again, he's capturing that same look. The really dark red with some flames coming off of him. And I like all of these, but I don't think any of them quite captured the look from the comic books that I wanted to see. I appreciate that Hasbro went for something different with this one, but this isn't really how I imagine the Human Torch when he's all lit up. So while I think this is a nice figure, I think casting him in the translucent plastic was a nice idea. Having this extra flame effect on his back, having his hair kind of look like flames. It's all pretty nice, but it wasn't my favorite. This here, as far as a depowered Johnny Storm goes, I think this is excellent. I love the expression on his face. He's got kind of one eyebrow cocked up, kind of a smirk, because Johnny Storm is one of the cockier heroes in the Marvel Universe. And yeah, I just think it's perfect. So it makes me feel a little bit better about not having maybe the definitive flamed up version in my collection, because I've got the definitive non-flamed up version here. And as far as the sculpting, it's really nice. Now you'd think they could maybe just reuse the same body for Johnny and Reed, but they didn't. I'll bring Reed back out here for a second, where Reed is a scientist and Johnny's more of a daredevil, but he's by no means a muscle man. But if you compare them, you'll see the abs and all the muscles are much more pronounced on Johnny, which makes more sense. He's younger, he's a little buffer, and you know, this guy's more of a lab rat. So I like that they didn't just use the same body across all the figures. And yeah, for other accessories, he's got these little flame effects, which can be removed. They're just kind of soft rubber. You can probably put them on different spots on his body if you want to wrap them around his legs here or whatever. So yeah, he's just got those little flame effects. And he also had some flamed up hands. So if you wanted to show him kind of partially getting ready to fire up, you could replace those there. And that's pretty nice. And I think that's really all you need. So yeah, I think this Johnny Storm is excellent. The head sculpt is the highlight of this figure. But just having him is really cool. So nice job, Hasbro. This one, if you're only going to get one of these Fantastic Four figures, this is probably the one you need. Next up is Dr. Doom in the package, from the back, and from the side. And here is Dr. Doom outside of the packaging. Now this will be the highlight of this wave for most people, and it was for me as well. I've been anticipating this Dr. Doom figure since I really got into collecting Marvel Legends a couple of years ago. As Dr. Doom is just one of the coolest villains in the Marvel Universe. Not just is he just such a big, menacing villain, you know, the kind of threat that requires the Avengers or the Fantastic Four. He's just, he looks cool as hell. And yeah, this figure, I think, is fantastic. So we'll start with the head sculpt here. So you see there he's got his metallic mask, and it's shrouded nicely in this hood. I love the way this hood fits. It's kind of, the face kind of gets lost in the shadows a little bit, but if you get up close, you do see some details. Like he's got some flesh tone there around his eyes. Yeah, it's just awesome. When you look at the tunic here he's wearing, like you can see it looks almost like it's real cloth, the way they sculpted in all this little detail. He's got a little tie there. It's awesome. Just all the wrinkles look really good. The details in the belt buckle. There's just a lot going on with this figure. If you look at his arms here, there's various textures. He's got a little chainmail buckles here to hold his armor on. It's great. On his belt here, he's got a holster with the little pistol tucked away in there. You get the D on his holster there, which is great. Now the tunic here, you'll see the skirt, it's split, so which is great because it doesn't hinder his movement. You know, you might be worried if that was all one piece that you couldn't get his legs, but his legs actually do go apart pretty wide, so you can get him in some good stances. You don't have to worry about that. So the articulation is really good. And yeah, the cape is really nice. Just the way the cape drapes off of him there. I imagine this is a brand new cape for Doom. It could be one they've reused for Doctor Strange or something. I don't know, but it fits him perfectly. It looks great. And I imagine it's new partly because of these bits here on the front are very much Doctor Doom. So yeah, this thing is just awesome. I love it. Now, Marvel Legends, Hasbro did produce Doctor Doom previously, but it has been several years, and that figure is kind of dated by today's standards. And we did actually get a Walgreens exclusive Doctor Doom just about a year ago that came out with all those other Fantastic Four figures I showed you. However, it was not the Doom anybody was really looking for. This is the Doctor Doom that we got from Walgreens. And while it's not a bad figure, it's very specific to a particular point in time. And I'm not that familiar with it because I was not reading any of the comic books related to this period of time. But there was a comic book series. They had rebooted the old 80s storyline, The Secret Wars. I did read the Secret Wars comic book from a couple of years back. And it changed a bunch of things in the Marvel Universe. It allowed them to kind of shake some things up, such as bring Miles Morales, the Ultimate Spider-Man, into the regular Marvel Universe. And one of the things that happened is Doctor Doom's scarred face was healed. And I don't know what happened after that, but something about he had a change of heart, I guess. Maybe having his face healed made him want to do good. And Iron Man was injured, I think, from the Civil War II event. So what happened is Doctor Doom stepped in as Iron Man and basically combined his look with Iron Man's look, and they gave us the invincible Doctor Doom. So you see here he's got the green cape and everything, but basically it's just like an Iron Man armor underneath it here. The mask is way more Iron Man than it was Doctor Doom. And yeah, so he was a good guy while he had this look, from what I know. Like I said, I didn't read any of these comic books when he wore this. And while I appreciate that Hasbro was kind of shaking it up, giving us something different, we were getting all these really great classic looks for the Fantastic Four, and I think people were expecting the same thing for Doctor Doom, and instead we got this. So now, a year later or so, we get this, which I would say is the definitive version of Doctor Doom. It just looks awesome, and yeah, I have no complaints whatsoever. Now, as far as accessories go, he does have a couple of fists, which is good. Not that Doctor Doom does a whole lot of his dirty work himself. But, yeah, right now I have him with his kind of open hands. And another thing they gave us is an alternate head, which is, it's similar to that head, but it's got a little bit more of a classic comic book look, I guess. So the hood is a little smaller. The face, you see a lot more of those like rivets around the mask. You see more of the flesh around the eyes. So it's a little more classic, where this is a bit more of a contemporary version. I prefer the contemporary look. But for people that were complaining, saying they really wanted a classic Doctor Doom, it's nice that Hasbro went the extra mile and gave you the two options for how you like to display your Doctor Doom. Now let's take a quick look back at some Doctor Dooms from the past. Doctor Doom, oddly enough, is one of the first superhero figures I had in my collection, because when I was a kid, by and large, you could not buy superhero figures. They didn't really come into play until the early 90s, but when kind of the mid to late 80s, when I wanted superhero figures, they were very hard to find. There was one line called The Secret Wars, which was based on the original Secret Wars comic book, and I didn't have any of them except for Doctor Doom. So here is the original Secret Wars Doctor Doom figure. So yeah, this might very well have been One of the, I don't know, 5 first superhero figures I ever had. So I've always kind of had a fondness for Doctor Doom because I've had this figure, I've been playing with it. I didn't have any other superheroes to play with it, so I would kind of integrate it into other toy lines that I'd be playing and stuff. But it's still a great figure that holds up pretty well today. Then when the Toy Biz did get the Marvel license in the 90s and started making toys based on the cartoons, we get this Doctor Doom, which also sculpt-wise isn't bad. The way his cape fits, it kind of leaves him a little hunched over, which is a little weird looking. Trying to straighten him out some. But he had this little action feature where you press his button on his shoulder and his hand shoots out. I don't really know why. Doom doesn't do that, but if you've ever read a Doctor Doom comic book, Doctor Doom often sends out Doombots in his place. So this might be a Doombot, I guess, if it has that extra ability. Now, a really nice Doctor Doom figure I have is from the 3 3/4 inch Marvel Universe wave of figures. And this here was just fantastic. It's got a lot of the same qualities as this new one I'm showing you today. It's got the sculpted cloth detail in the tunic, lots of nice detail in the armor, fantastic head sculpt. And so once I started collecting the 6-inch Marvel Legends, this is part of the reason why I wanted a Doom so bad, because I knew how good they made this version. And I was thinking, if they can make it this good in the 3 3/4 inch scale, they can do an amazing job in the 6-inch scale. But it took several years for us to get from point A to point B over here. But I'm glad we finally did, because this is an excellent Doctor Doom figure. This is an absolute must-have for every Marvel Legend collector. Even if you have the previous Hasbro release, this one is so much better. You got to upgrade. Fantastic figure. And here's She-Hulk in the package, from the back, and from the side. And here is She-Hulk outside of the packaging. And this figure I think is awesome too. So this whole wave has been pretty strong. So you see She-Hulk here, she's got some really nice sculpted detail. Like she's got all these torn clothes, and each one of these rips is sculpted in there so they didn't just cheap out and paint gray swatches to make it look like rips or anything. It's all sculpted there. Same as her t-shirt here. There's some soft rubber so you can kind of lift up on that. But yeah, all those tears there look really great. The texture in the jeans, so it kind of looks like, I don't know if I'd say it looks like denim, but it is textured, so that's pretty cool. And then the best thing of all about this figure is that head sculpt. Like, she looks beautiful but angry. She looks like She-Hulk. I love the way her hair is blowing there. Just everything about that just looks awesome. And yeah, she's a good size too. And she's got bare feet, which are done well. We had some bare feet on Shang-Chi in the Spider-Man wave, which I reviewed in my last video. And I think these come across even better than Shang-Chi's. Sometimes these barefoot figures end up looking a little bulky with big old ankles and stuff, but I think this looks really good here for She-Hulk. And size-wise, she's good and tall. Let me bring up one of the other figures here just for comparison. So here she is next to Sue, who would be more like a normal-sized human woman. And then you've got her next to the Thing. And yeah, I think all that scale looks about right. Like she's big and tall. And yeah, looks great. Now this look here might be not what you're used to when it comes to She-Hulk. And that is because it is based on a contemporary look for her. I don't even know if she still maintains this look. It might have been a short-lived kind of flash in the pan, because She-Hulk is generally green and she usually wears purple. I don't have many prior She-Hulk figures that I can bring up to show you, but I do have a She-Hulk from the 3 3/4 inch line. So this is the She-Hulk most people are used to. Green, purple, and not so angry. Because unlike her cousin, the Hulk, she tends not to lose control when she hulks out. She still maintains all of her mental faculties, so she's still smart and funny and articulate. And this look stems from the storyline Civil War II. I don't even remember exactly how it happened. The Avengers went off to fight Thanos, and She-Hulk ended up in a coma, and when she awoke from the coma, she looked like this. And I think it had something to do with her being really irate, because I think she was dating War Machine at the time, and he got temporarily killed, or so I'm not sure if it was a result of fighting Thanos or a result of the coma, or it was just a result of her extreme anger that made her gray with all these like green, I don't know, it's almost like they were kind of glowing the way they were colored. It looked like, I don't know, green ooze or veins coming out of her. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. Maybe if I had read the book, I would have understood what the premise of all these green lines on her gray skin were. But regardless of not knowing what it means, I really like the look, and I'm glad it's kind of something different. Sometimes when you start buying these characters, you know, in multiple scales and multiple times, even though they're improvements, sometimes it does get a little old buying the same thing over and over again. So that's why I like with a character like this, that she gets a chance to kind of evolve and grow into something a little different. And yeah, I really think this is a nice looking She-Hulk. I'm very pleased with it. Even if she doesn't maintain this look. If she goes back to being green, then so be it. But I'm glad we got this figure for this short-lived look. It's really nice. Now, she doesn't have much in the way of accessories. You see I've got her displayed there with her fists. But she did have open hands here as well. So you can have her gripping things. But she's a Hulk, so it makes sense to display her with the fists as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, this is a beautiful figure. I think all the figures in this wave have been pretty successful. So yeah, this is another highlight. So even if you already have the Walgreens Fantastic Fours and you don't plan on buying this full wave, I definitely think upgrading your Doctor Doom and getting this first ever gray She-Hulk figure is definitely the way to go. So lastly, we're going to take a look at the Build-A-Figure from this wave, which is the Super Skrull. So if you're not familiar with the Super Skrull, he is one of the Skrulls, which you might know from the Captain Marvel movie. These guys are shape changers. They can take on the look of anybody they encounter. Super Skrull in particular, he famously takes on the abilities of all the Fantastic Four, and so that's why he's one of their toughest villains, because he can throw everything they throw at him right back at him. So you see that's represented here by he's got a long, stretchy arm to represent that he's got Mr. Fantastic's powers, and the arm is invisible to show that he's got the Invisible Woman's powers, and then he's got one big rocky fist here like the Thing, and that there's this kind of flame effect you can snap on there to show that he's got the Human Torch's powers. And that's usually how they portrayed the Super Skrull's powers, is kind of all four of them at once like that, and this one covers that off pretty successfully. I think it looks great. And this figure, you know, he's nice and big and buff. The Super Skrull was always kind of a big, tough villain. So this guy looks like he'd put up a fight against the Fantastic Four. I like it a lot. Now, he himself didn't necessarily come with accessories, because he himself was he's the accessory to all those figures I just showed you. But there were, the figure, I can't remember which part came with which figure, but the figure that came with the head, it actually came with two heads. So you've got that one, which I prefer, but you also have this one with kind of the evil sneer, so you can display him with either one of those. Another thing that's kind of nice about this head sculpt is you could just plop it on one of your other Marvel Legends figures, and that way, so if you put this head on a Captain America body, say, you could be like, look, I have a Skrull impersonating Captain America, so that's kind of cool. And then he also came with a couple of standard arms as well. So if you don't want to show him using his Fantastic Four powers, which he doesn't do all the time, you can give him these kind of standard arms. So it's nice that you have the option for all of that. And yeah, Super Skrull is a character that's been around a whole long time. He's had figures in the past. I don't have any Super Skrull figures necessarily, but I do have some other Skrull figures. For example, from the 3 3/4 inch Marvel Universe, I've got this Skrull figure, but he's more just like a Skrull soldier. He's not supposed to be anybody in particular. Then from the 90s Toy Biz, from the Silver Surfer toy line, there was this Skrull, but he was supposed to be a different named Skrull. He wasn't the Super Skrull. And then more recently, from the Captain Marvel movie, they released this guy here. So again, he's got the kind of the green skin, kind of the purple and black motif. So you can see how they were inspired by the comic Skrulls. But when I first saw this figure before the movie came out, I was kind of disappointed because I was hoping they would maybe use that wave to sneak a Super Skrull figure out. Instead, they gave us this guy. And I considered buying him and just saying, well, maybe I'll buy him and put him on my shelf and I can display him and just kind of pretend he's the Super Skrull. But I didn't love the look of it. He just wasn't buff enough. This costume didn't really do it for me. So I skipped this figure. But then once I saw the movie, I enjoyed this character so much as played by Ben Mendelsohn that I wanted this character on my shelf just for him being him. Which meant I still needed a Super Skrull. So it's nice that we did eventually get one. And we got one that's so good. Again, he's got all the same great posability as any of the other figures on the line. Double jointed knees, double jointed elbows. So I've got no issues with anything there. Like I said, having the two faces is great for an option, and having the alternate hands. Yeah, this is an awesome Build-A-Figure, and definitely made it worth getting the rest of the wave in order to get this figure. So all in all, I'd say the Fantastic Four line was a huge success. So that is my review of the newest Fantastic Four Marvel Legends. Hopefully you found this video informative and fun. If so, please make sure to leave me comments, like the video, subscribe to the channel. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Until next time.